You know, we could have put every single Metal Gear game on this list, but we decided to cut it down to only the most depressing. Hooray? Hey, it's Game Rant, and here it is, the 8 darkest endings in the Metal Gear games ranked. And you better believe there's gonna be some spoilers, so now's your time to leave. You get it? Number 8. Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. By the time the credits roll on Raiden's crazy adventure on Big Shell, you may be feeling optimistic. After all, this young man is broken free from the chain of fate thrown before him by a series of shadowy figures, all part of a grand experiment to see if Solid Snake was gifted or just plain lucky. That's right, this test didn't even take Raiden's individuality into account. So sure, good for Raiden. He stabbed a former president in New York and now he can go see his girlfriend. But every mission, every encounter, every decision in Raiden's life leading up until that exact moment has been totally meaningless. So here's hoping nothing tragic happens later on this list, right? Number 7. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Come on, Raiden, we were just talking about how hopeful everything was, and you've gone and turned yourself into a cyborg. The world of Revengeance is far and away the most bleak look at the Metal Gear universe, and canonically it is the furthest in the timeline, where the brains of orphans are put into steel casings and placed into cyborgs. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. And again, Raiden ends his mission by killing another orbiter of the executive branch. This time it's presidential hopeful Armstrong. In fact, if we had a nickel for every time Raiden did that, we'd only have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that happened twice, right? Number 6. Metal Gear Solid: Otacon Ending. Hideo Kojima, the little devil he is, has always experimented with ways to connect consequences directly back to player actions. One of the more obvious and depressing examples of this is the Otacon ending from the original Metal Gear Solid. If players fail to endure the extended torture sequences, and who could blame you, those are really hard, then Snake's new love interest and the young relative of Roy Campbell, Meryl, would be murdered off screen. But even Kojima couldn't commit to the bit, allowing Meryl to return in a later game. Oh well, I guess Snake and Otacon can at least go pants shopping now. Number 5. Metal Gear Solid: Peace Walker. This entry, much like Metal Gear Solid 2, requires a bit of perspective to appreciate. Peace Walker is one of the most fun Metal Gear games, focusing on building an army and replaying missions. It's one of the most definitive games for the PSP, and a forgotten multiplayer classic. But you're essentially helping Big Boss build a band of mercenaries. And whatever you want to say about his intentions at the time, turns out that absolute power later went to his head, as seen in the original Metal Gear games on the MSX. So fans always knew where this was heading. You're building towards his own demise. But it was so dang fun, they couldn't put it down. Number 4. Metal Gear Solid 4: Guns of the Patriots. So at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4, Big Boss shows up out of nowhere, but it finally brings closure to the entire series, having the greatest soldier to ever live meet his own equal in his legendary clone. Oh, what's that? Didn't we mention he was killed off in the MSX games? Yeah, well, nanomachines or Solidus or something. The point is, they kill an old man. Remember Zero or Major Tom from Metal Gear Solid 3? Yeah, here he is again. And Big Boss just kills him right there. And then Big Boss drops dead. Adios, greatest generation. Snake just wanders off to hang out with his friends, again making the past century of violence totally meaningless. Number 3. Metal Gear Solid 5: Ground Zeroes. Man, okay, this is where we really start sliding off from sad into some truly horrifying endings. Ground Zeroes is the standalone prologue to Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. And much like a TV show closing out its season, it was all about teasing what could possibly happen next. Well, first of all, no one expected a big budget sequel to Peace Walker, but we got one. And then Paz straight up exploded. And then the whole mother base is completely destroyed. Now, given how firmly the Metal Gear timeline was set, especially this late into the series, fans were left shocked as Big Boss and the years of accumulated work were wiped away in a second. So yeah, pretty dark. Number 2. Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain. Where to begin with this one? Okay, so everyone is aware that the Phantom Pain story was left unfinished, but truth be told, there's still a sizable conclusion that often isn't openly discussed. See, Big Boss, or Punished Venom Snake, well, that's not Big Boss. It's an entirely separate person who worked alongside Big Boss before entering a 9-year coma where they were tricked into believing they were Big Boss. And it's also why if you look on the box, you'll see Metal Gear Solid V for 5, V stands for Venom. Yes, really. That's right, the entire war with Skullface, the loss of Venom Snake's allies, all of it was set about to distract from the real Big Boss's covert operations to build Outer Heaven. Just as you feel you've lived the legacy of Big Boss, turns out you're right. You've helped commit a fraud for a fraud, and you are a fraud. Thanks for playing. Number 1. Metal Gear Solid 3: Snake Eater. It's no surprise that the earliest chronological titles in Metal Metal Gear's history are also its most depressing. The narrative of the overall series covers a wide variety of topics. It is a Kojima game after all, but time and again, the discussion of the battlefield and the soldiers within them turns to a deep sense of isolation. Metal Gear may have achieved its popularity using the iconography of war, but its purpose, much like great films within the genre, is decidedly anti-war, with the role of soldiers deeply tied to existentialism and fatalism. No game better epitomizes this philosophy than Snake Eater, which concludes with the young soldier Snake forced to kill his mentor and perhaps his last connection to his own innocence. For doing this, Snake is granted the title of Big Boss and is praised by bureaucratic suits in closed-door sessions, left only to salute the nameless tombstone of the boss and plotting his path forward to remove his military from any nation. Thanks for playing! Anyway, that's gonna do it for this list. Why don't you let us know what Metal Gear ending you found the darkest in the comments below, and we'll make sure to check them out. Keep clicking around here in Game Rant, and we'll see you next time.